Welcome back to the Inner Slot podcast. This week, episode number 12. As usual, it's me, Josh, joined by Henry and Connor. Chris can't make it this week, so it's just the three of us. We'll see how that affects the quality of what is produced. But obviously, we're approaching the best weekend of the whole season. The Super Bowl, this is what everyone looks forward to. I think, it should be fun. We'll talk about that a bit more later. But Connor, why don't we go back to last week's In the Slot Buster, number 10. Take us through that.
Yes, so last week's In the Slot Busters. So, yeah, to give everyone an idea of what we do with the In the Slot Busters is last week I gave Josh, Henry and Chris the chance to guess a cryptic clue for a player around the NFL. And in a second, I'm just going to go and find out whether they have got the answer correct, and if they have, how they kind of got to their answer. What we are aiming to do is get to a point as well where we are getting some comments on our YouTube and Twitter about what you all thought as well our cryptic clue was, and what the In the Slot Buster was for the previous week. So last week's cryptic clue was, I like to do somersaults down by the stream. So over to you guys.
Yeah, I like this one. I thought this was a nice creative one. Somehow it came to me straight away. So I got it like straight away on the podcast, but really liked it. And Josh, I think you've got it as well.
Yeah. Same for me, Henry. I think the thing which always strikes me is sometimes with the cryptic clues, it's the first part and you get a first name. This one was definitely the latter part for me. It was the surname which just immediately gave it away. And then, like you said, Henry, creative start to the name which kind of penciled it in there for me. But why don't you guess it out loud first?
Okay. Well, I've given it the build up now. Hopefully I've got it. So I got this one as Philip Rivers.
Yeah, good old Flip.
That was an enjoyable one, and as soon as you kind of got as soon as you said you knew it on the call, I was like, to be fair, there's probably not another name that could be confused with, but again, it was just a different way. We are exploring how we progress this game and how we continue it, because it could potentially go on for hundreds of episodes, who knows. So yeah, and in not long, I'll be coming back to the In the Slot Busters for this week.
Yeah, just separated this week. Where there's no booms or busts anymore. Definitely nothing like that. The only thing which was topically relevant, which happened in the NFL, was the Madden 21 Pro Bowl. Which
relevant.
Yeah, I use the word relevant very loosely there. I will admit, before the pod, I was looking up to find out who won so I could announce that, and it took me at least 3 separate Google searches. So obviously, we're not the only ones who don't view it as particularly relevant. The NFC, of course, won. Kyler Murray was somehow named as the MVP of the Pro Bowl, which I wasn't expecting to see as a title. And the only other noteworthy fact which I have on that is Jamal Adams ran the same play 4 times in a row to get a touchdown. I believe a touchdown. I've added that part in because I didn't watch the full clip. Henry, I know when we were talking before, you were saying, let's actually talk a bit more about the Pro Bowl rosters and the players who would have been there, and how we thought it went quite well this season. What were your thoughts overall?
Yeah, I tried to bring it back to something. I did actually watch that clip, and Jamal Adams is going absolutely nuts while he's doing that. So that was fairly entertaining, I suppose. But I just wanted to call out a few players, some that have got relevance this upcoming week, and then a couple that I think we might actually talk about a bit later. So one of the players to see in the Pro Bowl again is Eric Fisher, the Chiefs left tackle, confirmed now out with a significant lower leg injury. He'll miss the Super Bowl. And having seen what the Bucs did to the Packers in the previous round with pressure off the edge, could be a big one, but thoroughly deserved. And the reason I always liked Eric Fisher is he went number 1 overall and had a lot of abuse first couple of years as a bust, but has really turned it around and signed a big extension and going to his second Super Bowl champion. So always quite like Eric Fisher there. I'm also going to pick out 2 offensive linemen from the NFC. One, Elgton Jenkins, as a Packers fan, great to see him be recognised. He's had a brilliant season, and what a fantastic draft pick he was. And the other one is Frank Ragnow of the Lions, Lions centre. Something we'll come on to a bit later when discussing the Stafford and Goff trade, but the situations that each of them are going into, I think that's quite an interesting discussion that we'll have a bit later. So a couple of interesting Pro Bowl selections there.
Yeah, thanks, Henry. And I'm so pleased you brought up Eric Fisher in that draft, because you're right. That was the draft class which was really criticized for the top three. Eric Fisher went number 1. Luke Jokel went number 2 to the Jags, later converted to guard and bounced around a couple of NFL rosters. Dion Jordan was the number 3 spot, defensive end who never fulfilled his potential. Both Jokel and Dion Jordan, interestingly, had a couple of seasons, 1 for Jokel and 2 for Dion Jordan with the Seahawks. But yeah, terrible top 3, and Eric Fisher proving the exception to that. Nice to see, as we haven't really had tackles go super high since that draft class. I mean, always they've been in the top half, but never number 1 overall again. So nice to see that one pay off. And you're right, it's going to be sorely missed. Obviously, we don't have Chris this week for the COVID or injury update, but Eric Fisher's the one which really stands out, going to make the biggest difference for the game as a whole. And yeah, we saw what Shaq Barrett and everyone did to the Packers without Bakhtiari there. So similar story for Mahomes. Hopefully we get a good game on the hands. But Connor, why don't you take us back to In the Slot Busters and actually give us this week's one, number 11?
Yeah, absolutely. So to explain again, I know I briefly touched on it about what the whole concept of the game is about, but the idea is that every week when we film our podcast, which is on a Wednesday night, I give everyone the chance to guess over the next week what they think the cryptic clue will break down to be. The idea of it is that it will be anyone involved in the NFL. So we've seen now that I've picked commentators, people, players from the draft, and also playing players as well. So it will change drastically, but it will be anyone who's involved in the NFL, and it's kind of a cryptic clue that alludes and builds into that person's name kind of coming to life. So to give you this week's cryptic clue, I'll say it twice, and then we'll also share it around on our Twitter during the week. So if you do want the chance to win a small prize, I believe it's a small pocket helmet with from the team of your choice. And yes, I'll give you that clue. All you need to do is comment on YouTube or Twitter with your guess, and you will be in for a chance to win. Even if you're not confident in it, just go ahead anyway. So this week's cryptic clue is, wow, my child's vehicle just came. I'll say that again. Wow, my child's vehicle just came. So Josh just really quickly unclicked mute. So I have a feeling he might already have it, but
You got it, Josh.
No, I was going to say it was a super quick one. Usually what happens is Connor says it, I get a chance to write it down. By the time he says it the second time, I've managed to finish writing it down, and then I can actually start to think about it. This time I didn't even have a chance to do any of that. So I will think about it as we go on, but I haven't got anything yet. What about you, Henry?
No, haven't got it yet. I thought that was going to be the first name, so I've got plenty to work out there.
So yeah, everyone's got a week to kind of guess this, and it's the exact same as how you hear it on the pod. Is that Josh and Henry and usually Chris will not tell me their answers throughout the remainder of the week, and we'll get a live reaction and like the first time I'm hearing where their guesses came from and how they kind of came together. So we would love to have a YouTube or Twitter comment for this. So do get your guesses in.
Yeah, please. It would be nice to be joined and have someone go up against Connor with his wordplay here. But kind of moving back to the real NFL, what's going on at the moment. Just one thing really quickly to mention. There's been an outcry recently. At the time of recording, probably this was posted about half an hour ago. So it's hot off the press. But John Gruden had an interview with Chris Collinsworth, and basically everyone's accusing him of tampering with Richard Sherman, obviously upcoming free agent. So it'll be very interesting to see how the Raiders factor into that cornerback discussion, picking up on Richard Sherman. Obviously, probably the weakest part of their roster right now, and the one they've invested the most heavily in recently is the cornerback room. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with that. Henry, what do you think about Sherman to the Raiders?
Badly needed. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the area, like you said, Josh. Apart from perhaps wide receiver, that's the area that they need to target the most. I mean, that Raiders defense has been abysmal for as long as I can remember. I mean, even with Khalil Mack, that secondary's been dreadful for a long, long time. I believe I saw a stat the other day that Derek Carr's never played with a top 20 defense. So I think that says a lot about it through multiple head coaches. So that would be a great pickup. I haven't seen the interview. I expect Sherman's going to command quite a nice price, even though the injuries hampered him this year. He still performed at a high level, so it'll cost a lot, but yeah, it should be a good market for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we typically see is people scared of giving these big deals. I think if you put yourself in the head coach GM spot right now, Connor, do you think you're looking at an aging veteran like Sherman? You know where his play is going to be at. Maybe you expect to drop off a little bit, but you can get him on a short-term contract and not worry too much about handcuffing your future and betting it all on him.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. You take the experience, don't you? Like, if you're struggling in that position, it might be that if you have him in the roster going into this year, and you potentially do need to fill that space with a rookie, then you're going to use his experience to kind of train someone up to build for the future. It isn't necessarily about that person being there for 10 years, but their 1 year experience around the group of players can be changing for that future of that side. So I would say it would be worth having him in.
Yeah, and on top of that, I guess I think you're kind of alluding to it there, but it's the locker room presence, isn't it, of the
exactly,
the veteran leadership, which definitely he brings to the table. Much needed there.
It's that trust. It's not even what he brings in. It's like in terms of like what his personality will do, but it's knowing like everyone wants to play with the best. They will always want to. If you're an elite athlete, you'll always want to play with the best, play against the best, and if you've got that guy around, knowing what he's been through, what he's like, what games he's been in, and what he's been a part of, then absolutely, he has a huge impact to just that respect straight away, and then he can start talking and start doing. So,
yeah, for sure. I think just echoing that point, I think a team that signs Richard Sherman, they're going to be one that's expecting to compete for a Super Bowl. I think that's the only reason you'd probably sign a cornerback of that age and experience and for that amount of money. I was just trying to have a think through the Raiders roster of anyone who's actually won a Super Bowl. And I think it's probably only Malcolm Smith, the former Seahawk as well. I think that's probably it. I don't think they have anyone with significant playoff experience. So I think some people in that ilk is probably much needed for that Raiders team as they look to take the next step. I mean, interesting team to watch this offseason. There's the Derek Carr the trade rumors are starting to gain quite a lot of pace. So we'll see about that as well.
Yeah, so please, you've segued me on to the next section, Henry, perfectly, and that is talking about trades. And obviously, this offseason, we've seen so many quarterbacks out there, and one of which who is garnering a lot of trade interest is Derek Carr at the moment. It's sort of the rumor mill. It's the early stages. It's the mutterings that go on behind the scenes. If you're Gruden, if you're Mayock, you're looking at Derek Carr, you're seeing who's out there, who's in the draft, and you're thinking, surely we can upgrade. And if you're a team who's probably at the sort of Rams stage or that elk of team, maybe you're thinking, if he was on a better team with better play around him, better coaching, maybe he would be the quarterback that they're missing. So it's a real interesting one. We will touch on Derek Carr later. But whilst we're on trades, the big one which has gone through, which has happened, Matt Stafford for Jared Goff, a whole bunch of picks in there as well. The Lions and the Rams, and we'll kind of quickfire ask you guys who you think won that trade. It's always difficult to judge, but from the team perspective, and then we'll talk about the players. So Henry, quickfire, who do you think won? You can say either, you can say neither, or you can say both.
I'm actually going to say the Lions. My head says the Lions. I do quite like the trade for both teams, but if I had to pick a winner long term, if we're going quick fire, Lions.
Yep. Connor, what about for you?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's the Lions as well.
Yeah.
And I'm keeping that quick fire. Unless you want any other comments.
No, that's perfect. We will touch on it later, and I'll lead us in there. I mean, for me on paper, it does look like Lions too. Really, the quarterbacks don't really compare too much. There's not too much difference in my opinion, really. I'm a massive Jared Goff hater. I will fully admit that. I don't respect the guy. I don't think he's worth anywhere near the money he's paid. But equally, if we're talking about quarterbacks, Matt Stafford, whilst he's serviceable, and he is still a top half quarterback in the league, no doubt about that. But does he make your team that much better? I don't think he does. I think if you're the Rams and you've got the rest of that team around it, who willed a team who had John Wolford and Jared Goff at quarterback to the divisional round of playoffs, and lost to the Chiefs. In reality, you're probably sat there thinking that upgrade between Goff and Stafford could put us into Super Bowl contention again. So I understand the decision behind it, but as an organization, 2 first-round picks, it just feels like so much to give up for the guy that isn't the guy. And there were other people available, right, Henry? That's what factors into it the most for me. Is that your thoughts as well?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Josh, and probably one that people aren't considering as much as they could. Definitely, there's plenty of other quarterbacks available. I really do think this boils down to McVay and the Rams and what they think they can achieve. And we're talking a bit about rumors, but there's plenty of rumors that Goff and McVay actually didn't get on that well. And that McVay was getting a bit fed up of sort of the hand-holding process. Apparently, he was in the headset, right up until the headset gets cut off before the snap, telling him the protections, the coverages, all of that kind of stuff, and didn't feel like Goff was elevating the level of the people around him, simply being an extension of the coach and nothing more. And I think he thought, I need more. And you see a guy like Stafford, and he does do more than that. There's no doubt. Now there comes with other stuff with that, but he certainly does. Create plays out of structure. He's got a much stronger arm. There's lots of other things that Stafford can do that Goff cannot. Really, I think the Rams here are betting that for 2 years, Matt Stafford will be a top 10 quarterback in their system. And if he's not, this is going to hurt them for a long time. If he is, they've got a good chance of going to a Super Bowl. If Stafford's a top 10 quarterback the next 2 years, so his contract is 2 years, 43 million. Not outrageous. If you're a top 10 quarterback, that's a good deal. That's a pretty good deal. This is one I'd like to throw back to you, Josh. There's been a lot of stuff, a lot of articles written about whether Goff and his contract was actually a bonus in the trade, or if the Rams traded or the Lions took Goff and if essentially they got more for taking Goff. So was it a salary dump that you would see in the NBA? So perhaps if they didn't trade Goff, they wouldn't have got as much in terms of picks back. What do you think? Do you think Goff and his contract is a positive, or do you think because Goff's contract was so expensive, more per year than Stafford's, that they actually used it as a salary dump?
Yeah, I think it's, I'm so pleased you used the analogy and likened it to the NBA, because I think this offseason, more than any other, we've seen the NFL start to reach the trade levels of the NBA. Obviously, they massively trade around, and predominantly, you're right, it is to dump and offload contracts. That's why we floated it out. If the Falcons were to trade for Watson, if they got rid of Matt Ryan, is that a benefactor for them? And of course it is. The Rams, it factors into their mindset. There's no way they would have traded for Stafford without Goff going in the other direction. Probably what that means, in my opinion, is his value is naught. He's not considered from either side. I don't think the Lions see it as a particular concern. They're not going to get a quarterback who is going to be on a deal which is really going to matter based on what Jared Goff's being paid. Yeah, they pay slightly more, but you've got a veteran, someone who can lead a little bit. You've got a good quality backup if you need one. I think the picks equal Matt Stafford, and I think Jared Goff is to go in the other way. not to change the terms of a deal, but just to give them the financial flexibility to have Matt Stafford in the first place. That's my feelings. Yeah, and just to kind of follow on from that and one step further, Connor, you were the person who I asked a question to about Matt Ryan, and whether it works that way. Do you feel the same as me? Do you think that the Lions got a benefit in receiving Goff, or actually lost a little bit of value there?
I mean, I think Goff gives them the flexibility going into the future because they've now got those 2 first-round picks as well, which obviously Henry has said kind of gives you, like, for on the side of the Rams, it gives them that, right, we're focusing on Stafford, this is going to be our guy. But the other way around for the Lions is that the Goff pick doesn't tie them down at all. Like, they could, if it doesn't work, or if they don't like what they see straight away, can we then take someone else? Can we move this team around? Can Goff go back to being on the bench? And I think that's where for them it works so much better, is that they have this freedom that comes with that trade.
I think that's a great point, Connor. Yeah, really good point. And I think there's been a lot written already about, well, this rules the Lions out of taking a quarterback in round 1. Remember, they've got a really high pick this year. They could take Justin Fields this year. And like you said, Connor, the perfect word is freedom. They can do whatever they want. They've got, a high pick this year, top 5 pick, isn't it? Top 5 pick this year. And then next year, 2 first rounders, the year after 2 first rounders. You can do a hell of a lot with that. I also think, sorry, Connor, go on.
I was going to say, like, it could all like, we'll see how it pans out in the next few weeks, but it could be really interesting to see what sort of level of competition they'll do straight away. Is it right? Like, how will we, like, almost like play around with their, like, with how they are, and what their level of competitiveness is. But do you just bring another quarterback in straight away and put Goff to the test and say to him, like, right, we've traded for you, we want you, we've got these 2 first-round picks, but now, we've got someone else to take your spot. Like, both of you now need to play better. You as a rookie needs to play better coming into this team, and you as a supposed to be established quarterback needs to prove that you're worth your space. And if not, well, we've got someone just as good. So it could bring that level of competition straight into it, and make Goff kind of aware that it's not going to be an easy ride moving forward, that he could. But we'll see how that pans out. It might not be that they do that this season. But that could be one factor that kind of comes in.
Yeah. And just to clarify, the Lions have picked number 7 this year, but obviously with the Arsenal picks they received, they could easily trade up. We already talked about it on our QB draft looks, and I'm sure we'll talk about it going into the draft as well a bit more. But there are easily 4 quarterbacks in this draft that you could feel comfortable with taking within the top 10 spots. I would even argue, in my opinion, Mac Jones is there too. I know I'm particularly high on the guy, and I think he brings a really high floor, which usually is a concern for quarterbacks, because that commonly comes with a low ceiling. And Jared Goff was a high floor, low ceiling quarterback, and we saw how that panned out. But you're exactly right, both of you. There's so much flexibility there. You've got something guaranteed in Goff. Maybe you elevate him by bringing in something. And equally, there are some quarterbacks set to hit free agent market that don't look too bad options either. You got your Jameis Winstons, and of those kind of players, Marcus Mariota is going to hit the market again. So you could easily have a camp battle whether you draft a quarterback or not. It'd be really interesting to watch, see how that pans out. I saw an article which basically predicted that Pete Carroll would outlast Sean McVay. Very much this feels like a do or die type moment for the Rams. I don't think Sean McVay would be out of the NFL. We talked about it. In my opinion, he is top three coaches in the NFL already. But he is handcuffing himself to this Matt Stafford trade a little bit, isn't he, Henry?
I think so. I think certainly in the short term. I mean, I think what the Rams have made clear over the last few years is they've been all in for about 7 years. They either they don't value first round picks the same way as the rest of the NFL, or they just think that they have the core team to win. Maybe when you have players like Aaron Donald and and such, you do feel that way. I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a big 2 years for McVay. It is a big 2 years. That's undoubted. And I think they don't have the freedom. They don't have the freedom to go another direction at quarterback for the next 2 years. They have to have this. And one thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is the situation for Matt Stafford in terms of the surrounding cast and play callers and all of that. How much better does it get? So he hasn't been a top 10 quarterback for quite a few years now. I think he was graded 13th last year, so pretty good. But in reality, you're going from sort of Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones, TJ Hawkinson played well this year, Danny Amendola, Pro Bowl center Frank Ragnow, to the Rams, who do have some nice pieces like Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, but their left tackle is, I think, 39, 40 years old. Do they have a third receiver? Not really. The offensive line's not played as well in recent years, and the defense is probably not going to be as good as it was last year. This year past gone, they were outstanding, and it's tough to stay that good on defense. So the one thing that Josh will I'm sure come to is the coach, right? The coach makes a big deal. So how much do you think that will help, Josh? Do you think that'll change it a lot? Because you look at what the Lions have had, Stafford has not had a lot of help from a coaching perspective.
Yeah, and that's probably part of the reason why it came out that Matt Stafford said, I will go anywhere except for New England because Matt Patricia's there, basically, without saying it. And yeah, Sean McVay elevates it, but what we don't know is what that Rams offense looks when they feel like they've got a competent quarterback. I think if you were going to look at Sean McVay and what he brings to a team, what he immediately upskills, that is your West Coast passing, your wide receiver screens, your immediate quick passing plays, and he elevates the quarterback as a result of that because he mitigates their losses. When he's got Stafford, it's a completely different beast. You don't play that game with Stafford. You don't spend all that money, all that draft capital to get a deep threat quarterback like that, and then just chuck it short to Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods. So it will be interesting. You make a really good point about Andrew Whitworth, 39 years old. I'm confident that's how old he is. It feels like he's even older. Tom Brady probably looks at him and thinks he's too old for the game. But the thing for me is I don't actually think Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods are that good. I think they are good. A big Robert Woods fan, definitely a big fan. Cooper Kupp, so. I think he makes weird catches. There's something about him which doesn't grasp me, but I would take Marvin Jones over either of them any day, to be completely honest. Kenny Golladay makes contested catches. That's what he's gone from, those big receivers who make those tight window plays in the red zone as well. And I just don't feel like he's got that in LA. So yeah, it's going to be a massive change to the Rams scheme, and maybe that's for the better, maybe that's for the worse, who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree completely. I think for the Lions as well, I think Kenny Golladay's a free agent, Marvin Jones is a free agent, Danny Amendola is a free agent. If they let them go, it's clear what's happening. They're out this year. They're going to be back in the top 10 and have high picks again. So I've got one question to ask you to finish this little debate. Obviously, if you two want to come in at the end, let me know. But will McVay and Stafford make a Super Bowl? What do you think, Connor?
It's really
it's a tough question.
Because I completely agree with what Josh was just saying. Like, what is that Rams offense now with someone who can throw it deeper? Like, we've seen it so much. Like, I can only agree with Josh. I'm not going to go into it too much more. But like, we've only seen those small throws. We've only seen those. Like, we haven't seen the true capabilities of what we see with other teams. And now with McVay, and obviously we all rate him quite highly as well, is how can they adapt that team to be a threat in the air and a threat running? So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. I've got a soft spot for the Rams, and I would really love to see them make it to a Super Bowl, and hopefully this is the kind of change that can make that happen. So I'm going to go with yes for it.
Okay.
Interesting. I'm on a similar page with Connor. Obviously, he's echoed me. I'm echoing him back. But my heart definitely wants to say yes, like desperately wants to say yes. And I'm a Seahawks fan. Like that goes against everything which I believe in, but my head just says no in every regards. I don't see that as a top connection. You know, this season, maybe it's the exception to the rule, but it feels like we're now seeing the true value of the top level quarterbacks, the top level coaches, and they need to be together to make it work. And you know, the last 4 teams left in were easily the best 4 quarterback coach combos in the NFL, and that's primarily led by the quarterback. And Matt Stafford couldn't even get his Detroit Lions, you know, across the finishing line this year. Like, okay, yeah, Sean McVay is definitely better than Patricia, but to what extent does that equal a Super Bowl? I don't think it does, personally. But yeah, I would love to be proven wrong. I would love to be, but I don't think they will be, Henry.
Okay, good to hear. I think there's gonna be a little window, maybe where Brady retires, if that ever happens. Maybe where Rodgers leaves the Packers, Breeze is retired. The NFC's definitely could be there for the taking in 2 or 3 years. I'm gonna say no as well, I think. But yeah, I would quite like to see it. And that NFC, that
West.
NFC division now is, yeah, NFC West is absolutely stacked, isn't it? Wilson, Stafford, Kyler, and then 49ers to be confirmed. Let's see what comes there.
Probably Kirk Cousins, right?
Yeah, maybe Kirk Cousins.
To defend the yes as well, I just think there's so much to it that has had the Rams so nearly there. Like, we've been so excited about the Rams for so long. Like, what is that missing piece? And it Goff. Like,
Yeah,
I it's like I'm taking the glass. The glass
Awful.
I definitely think there's a path where they make it. I
Yeah,
definitely think there's a range of outcomes where Stafford is excellent. I really like Matt Stafford. I really do. So let's see.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point, Connor. I know we've now spoken about this trade for so long, but good because it will be separated as well. But the only thing which stops me from saying it is the Rams feel like they've stumbled into a Super Bowl. They've stumbled into the divisional round. It didn't feel like they made it in the right way to translate to future success. That's the thing which I look at. But yeah, you're exactly right, Henry. It could all change. Suddenly, everything could look rejuvenated. The running game looked amazing this season. So yeah, well, it's nice to have storylines. It's nice to have potential. So you know, maybe the Rams do make it to a Super Bowl. Yeah. So obviously, Goff and Stafford. That's the trade which has just gone through. There are a lot of other players out on the market, top level, predominantly quarterbacks. It's been the offseason to ship them, and you talked about it. We talked about it earlier. The shift from the NFL to the NBA style of trades. Obviously, Brock Osweiler a few years back, that was a trade to literally dump salary cap. So, yeah, NFL GMs definitely are moving a bit more progressively, being a bit more flexible with things. Organizations value draft picks differently, like we talked about the Rams. But one organization which has just been imploding on that level are the Texans. And there's the biggest asset of them all to be taken right now, Deshaun Watson. 100%. You basically get what is equivalent to picking 1.1. You know, we talked about it, Trevor Lawrence versus Watson. What do you do there? Do they trade him? Where does he go? Connor, jump in.
No, just to correct you, that the biggest asset is our next point of topic. Quite literally, is JJ Watt. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Thank you for spoiling what comes ahead, adding a terrible joke, adding no value, but basically proving the point that the Texans are imploding, that they're 2 and 3 on this list and only usurped by the one trade which has actually happened. So let's talk about Texans first. Obviously, for him, he said he's given a list, he's given an order of where he wants to go, and the Jets were sat at the top. And, you know, if Robert Saleh brings Deshaun Watson to the Jets, is that worth hiring him anyway, Henry? And what else do you want to add to the topic?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, absolutely. I think we've talked about it already, but people want to play for Robert Saleh. And that is a big deal in the NFL when it comes to recruiting, drafting, all this kind of stuff. And wow, like from the laughing stock of the NFL to what the Jets have done already is really impressive. I think people think that their GM knows what he's doing. That's a great start. He's been very impressive. So Joe Douglas, good first draft class, headlined by Mekhi Becton. Now a great head coaching hire. Big thing for me, which I mentioned on our head coaches episode. So go listen to that if you haven't already. Is the offensive coordinator, and he's got Mike LaFleur in, huge hire coming from San Francisco. That was a big get for him to take him away from Kyle Shanahan. Really impressive. So I think the Jets have to do it. They've got the most draft capital. They're the ones in pole position. He wants to go there. He wants to leave. They've got the picks to do it. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see that turnaround. I think the other big team who might not be getting that much attention, but who will make a hard run are the Bears. They need it. They haven't had, I think I've talked about this before, they haven't had the quarterback play for a decade, and they need Deshaun Watson like no one else. So they're the two spots for me. I think San Francisco, if they can make a play on it, I'd love to see it. I think they probably won't. But the Bears and the Jets, I think, are two to watch for. And then the Dolphins would be a really interesting one.
Yeah, absolutely. And Connor, let's talk from the other side. Do you think there's any chance that Watson stays with the Texans after all of this? Do you think that happens in any circumstance at all?
Yeah, I mean, you would like to think not. Like after all, from an organizational point of view, probably as well. Like, will they be able to, like, do they care to get past it, or are they happy to just have him there, unhappy, but knowing that he knows that he's still got to prove himself in the NFL if he does want to eventually get that trade. So I don't know. I would like to think he wouldn't stay. I would love to see him flourish somewhere else. I think he's got great qualities, and it is quite clear that he wants to take that somewhere else. I think from a spectator point of view, yeah, like let's see him go, and yeah, I'd hope he wouldn't stay for his sake.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you spoke for us all, Henry. We'd, as neutral fans of the NFL, we'd love to see Deshaun Watson go to the Jets. And what a drastic change that would make for their organization. But watch this space. We'll obviously keep you up to date as we hear anything more. Connor already gave away the next player, and that's JJ Watt. If you follow us on Twitter, you've seen the past 2 days we've run some polls, and basically what we've proven is that no one really knows where he's going to go. There are about sort of 5 teams that realistically people thought were in the mix, but other has always been getting the most votes on those polls. But the Steelers, some people thought he could go there. The Browns, Seahawks, Packers, and the Colts recently got a lot of votes. Henry, do you think he goes to any of them, or where do you think he ends up?
Yeah, I think you're right, Josh. No one knows really where he's going to. It sounds like he might leave though. I would be really interested. I've got 2 that really interest me. One is the Packers. As a Packers fan, I think the DN spot across from Kenny Clark could be a really interesting spot. I think it has to be a contender that signs him, a playoff team. I'd love that. That'd be really cool for me to see JJ Watt on my team. I think the other spot that would be a real possibility is the Bucks. And Ndamukong Suh is probably going to be leaving, and he's played sort of some hybrid DN sort of stuff there in their scheme. I think Watt to the Bucks could make sense if they lose quite a few of those defensive free agents. They might also lose Shaq Barrett, so that could be an interesting spot.
Wow, interesting one with the Bucks. That's a new one, Connor. You're the one who had the most to say. We know you love JJ Watt. Since all those times ago when he was on all the shows and everything, but what do you think happens in this scenario?
He was one of my first memories of I got into it quite late, I'll openly admit it. But he was one of my first memories on Hard Knocks, that season where, oh my God, who was it? I can't remember his name for the life of me, but
Kevin Johnson, was it?
Cowboy boots and the dungarees.
Vince Wilfork. Yeah, I remember that.
That was arguably one of the things that got me into the NFL. Who knows?
I don't blame you. I remember that series where JJ Watt catching passes late at night, one-handed. Yeah.
I was actually in Texas at the time, funnily enough, when I watched those episodes. But and on that topic, I'm gonna go biased. I'm gonna say keep him in Texas, but bring him to the other side. Take him over to the Cowboys. Our defense needs a fix.
I was gonna make some comment about the fact that you went to Texas, enjoyed watching the Texans, and then still supported the Dallas Cowboys, which, you know, says a lot about you as a person, Connor. But yeah,
Well,
probably you picked the right team on reflection somehow. You know,
Oh,
two terrible teams to support at the moment.
I'm so glad we decided to go to Dallas. We watched Dallas v the Texans, and I'm so glad I came away from that game going, you know what, I'm gonna be a Cowboys fan. I believe that was I was there the year that it was one of Romo's last games, I believe. Potentially one of Dak's first. I can't remember what the order was, but Dak definitely played, and Zeke had just been signed as well. But that's a fun fact into me. There you go, taking it off topic. But yeah, JJ, what's the Cowboys?
Yeah, well, let's keep it in Texas and skip ahead a couple spots. But the next one, and you know, this one probably is a given where he'll end up, but still worth saying anyway. Dak Prescott. Yeah, Dak Prescott could be a free agent. Do you think there's any chance he doesn't sign back with the Cowboys, Connor?
No, I don't see that happening at all. I do think that a lot of his like all of his, like, I suppose, like complaints that happened at the beginning of last season or during the off season last year was just all about getting more money. I don't think there's that worry that the media is making it out to be that he'll go. I don't think we should have signed him on that much. If anything, it probably works a little bit better for the Cowboys organization to not give him as much. But I don't think he'll go.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because most people's perception is that based on the period of play which he had to start the year, and the injury, he'll probably actually make more than the initial offer, which is the reason why it's taken a little bit longer. Henry, do you think Dak's worth it, and do you think he stays with the Cowboys?
I really think the amount is really important. I think if you pay him like a superstar, if you pay him 40 million, no, I don't think he's in that level of player. I don't think he's Rodgers, Mahomes, elite Wilson level. He might get there, but no, I think that's one way you would really cripple your team. It's almost like paying Goff 25. If you pay Dak 40, it's the similar sort of hampering. That being said, I do think he stays. I think the franchise tag him if they have to. If they can't sign him to a long-term extension, I think he'll stay. I think honestly he'll have a lot of success. You know, I want Mike McCarthy to succeed. Lots of weapons. I think they'll do well with Dak.
Yeah. We'll watch that one as well. Sorry, go on. I
do think the same with him. I do think that there is like success for him down the line. It's just that at the moment, I think the only, like, he was performing. He was up there as the passing leader. He was running the ball. He was making plays, and obviously he had all those weapons around him. It's a shame, but it seems like he didn't have that impact on. Well, we just don't know where. Like at the moment, I can't, like right now. Obviously our defense wasn't that good, but he wasn't. If it comes down to a quarterback, if you put that on the quarterback's shoulders, then he wasn't inspiring the whole team to do the whole bit, and that's where he then becomes that's where you take it to that superstar level, is how can he then impact his whole team to survive and win games.
Yeah. And obviously the salary cap's been affected by everything in the world. You know, it doesn't grow the same way it usually does. They've overpaid Zeke, definitely, we'd say. All those things factor into that money, and suddenly, it becomes a big factor. Speaking of big money on quarterbacks, Carson Wentz is sat there looking pretty. He had I won't be harsh on the guy, but you know, in reality, he had one good season, realistically, and he got paid for it.
He's made up like a few games every season to like accumulate to one good season, or is
it? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we took the best bits from his week 1 in 2014. Yeah, he wasn't even in the NFL then, but you know, the guy got paid. He did it when he needed to. He got his money. Now he's got all this guaranteed money. And does he get traded? I've heard the Colts out there a lot. They love Carson Wentz, if the media is to be believed. Do you think there's any way the Colts trade for him, Henry?
Maybe. I think it sort of depends on what the new regime in the Eagles think of Wentz, because I think if they like him, the Colts are going to have to give up a pick and take on that salary. And kind of like what we discussed with Goff, that salary's got to negate some of the value. So I think the Colts are the only place he'll go, purely because Frank Reich had huge success with him in Philadelphia. I think probably he stays. And I really don't like the look of this Eagles roster. I think they're going to be bad for a while, honestly. I think it was the worst head coaching position in the NFL.
Yeah, they need to seriously start worrying about ending up in Bears level of quarterback purgatory. There's a famous cliched now quote, which everyone always talks about, which is if you've got more than one quarterback, you've got no quarterbacks. And that is what's happening with the Eagles right now. But I can't help but think it's some sparring, isn't it? I mean, it's not real. No one in that organization believes in Wentz. Surely they're just trying to build up some level of value to try and get rid of him. But maybe I'll be proven wrong. I know there's a lot of Carson Wentz believers out there, but come on. Let's be real. I wouldn't choose to have him on my team, and if I could get a 4th round pick for him right now, I would be trading him in a heartbeat. Get rid of that salary cap for a 4th round pick. Let Jalen Hurts go for a year. I don't see any downside there. Talking about mediocre quarterbacks, let's move on to Derek Carr. Last spot, we talked about him going in. The Raiders undoubtedly have a lot of areas to fix, which makes them different from most of these teams, except for the Eagles and the Texans. So not from most of these teams, but most of the teams in the NFL with average quarterbacks. But Derek Carr, what do you do there? Where does he go? What happens, Henry? Do you think he moves anywhere realistically?
I'd kind of like to see him go somewhere else. I would. I think he could really succeed in a good system and in a good environment. I think I'd certainly take him over Goff. I think probably the Rams had a look at Carr. I know apparently they had a good look at Rodgers, and thankfully they were told no. But I think if you put Derek Carr in that Rams system, he'd really succeed really nicely. And I think Gruden needs to be careful if he trades Carr that he's got something better ready to go, because I do think Carr is a really good quarterback. Now, can you win a Super Bowl with Derek Carr in today's NFL? I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that question, and that's probably what Gruden's thinking at the moment.
Yeah, what a different NFL we'd be looking at if Aaron Rodgers ended up on the Rams, though. That question we asked earlier, like, for sure they're in a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah,
sure.
That's a super team. Yeah, that's big.
Yeah. Connor, what about Derek Carr? Any thoughts there for you?
I like again when he got paid, that was one of the first big payments I ever saw, and I was like, oh, he's got to be good. And for me, my expectation has never been reached. I don't like, my perception of him is not, it's not high. Like I just wouldn't see him for sure in a Super Bowl team. I don't think he's got that, unless it's just been the Raiders that have let him down over the years, or he's just not been able to perform there. But if he does go somewhere else and is able to live up to that hype that he once had to earn the money he earned, if not, no, I just think he's up there with one of the average quarterbacks that will always sit somewhere in the middle, not bad, not necessarily good, but can just keep a team ticking.
Yeah, I think Derek Carr is probably the most recent example of a yo-yo player that has been consistently overcompensated on whichever way you spun it. His brother David Carr got drafted so highly, everyone thought he was going to be amazing. Then he didn't turn out to be that. Then everyone was so scared with Derek Carr. He dropped to the 2nd round, I believe. Then teams loved the way he broke down film, all the NFL knowledge, which obviously he picked up from his dad and his brother. Then they were super high on him to kind of counteract it, like he's not his brother. Then he started playing well. Then he started worrying about it. And it just feels like that's Derek Carr in the NFL. And I'm exactly the same as you, Connor. I've never bought into it, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. You know, he is more serviceable than plenty of other quarterbacks in the league, like you said, Henry. So maybe some teams do go for it. Who knows? And obviously, you know, no opinions for this one, but people are saying Kirk Cousins for Garoppolo may be on the cards as well. So watch that space. A lot of trades, which is always good news. That means it could be an interesting off season. Moving back to the NFL right now, not looking to tomorrow, not looking to next year or future years. We've got the biggest game of the whole season coming up this weekend, the Super Bowl. You know, the storylines write themselves, right? Tom Brady, arguably the GOAT, right? Greatest quarterback of all time. I think he cemented that. Definitely, if he wins it, you know, everyone says that every year. If he wins one more Super Bowl, then he has to be the GOAT. But maybe this is the final Super Bowl that does guarantee it for him. But I think he's already there. I'm confident most people do anyway. And then we've got Patrick Mahomes going up against him, and for many, the future GOAT. Right? If he'd been in the league for 5 more seasons and he'd had the same level of production, he would already be in that conversation 100%. Everyone already thinks that of him, and he's been in the season as little time as he has. So it's going to be a really interesting one. The only downside for me as a fan, and I think this is really disappointing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, obviously with everything going on in the world, crowds, it's not the same, but you get to host a Super Bowl that you're playing in. I think that may be the first time that's ever happened. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it is, Josh. First time that the home team of a Super Bowl is playing in it.
Yeah, which is crazy. And it's the first time when a crowd size is basically 50%. 25,000 fans allowed in. You know, that's nothing in the NFL sphere. 30,000 cardboard cutouts. What a shame. They don't even get to fire their cannons. I saw.
I saw that as well.
Yeah. How disappointing is that, Connor, right? That's what we wanted to see. We were looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's home team advantage. Give it to them.
Yeah, they need it, right? I mean, you're going up against Patrick Mahomes. Okay, Eric Fisher's out. We talked about that, but that could have been the thing which put the Bucs over the edge. Do you think if they don't win, Henry, does that become more of a storyline?
I don't know. I think if Brady wins, the storyline's going to be unbelievable. And yeah, I'm with you, Josh. I think Brady's cemented. He's the greatest of all time at the moment. You can't have that level of success and not be in it. To reach a Super Bowl with a new team in your first year is unreal, amazing. I think if Mahomes wins, then he's still he still has that chance to become the greatest ever and overtake Brady, because there'll always be that game that he beat Brady. If Brady wins, then Mahomes might not ever get another chance to beat him, and I think that'll be it. But what an exciting game. I can't remember which week it was, Josh, but Tony Romo called this, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Months ago.
He did, and we had that whole debate on the pod. We were talking about what we thought it would be, and we second guessed him. I can't remember what week they played each other, but it was the sort of mid to latter.
I think it was 9, maybe.
Yeah,
I was thinking 9, maybe.
Yeah, I was thinking sort of 9, 10, or 12, was it?
12. Okay.
Week 12. But yeah, he called it. Fair play to Tony Romo, and that was a time when the Saints were well and truly ahead in the NFC South. Like, for all intents and purposes, he had no right to call that as the Super Bowl, but he did. And you're exactly right. Like, that's 100%. That should be being talked about more.
Yeah, that was a big deal. So just for everyone's interest, the Chiefs are the favorites. They're about 3.5 point favorites, so about a field goal preferred. And as you both mentioned, the crowd could have made a difference to that number. It might have meant that the Bucs were slightly more favored. The over under on the game is 56.5 points. So that's a lot of points. Everyone's expecting this to be a very high scoring game, and I agree. Yeah, I think that we'll see lots of points. I think big storyline for the both teams is injuries. Like we said, Eric Fisher out for the Chiefs. Antonio Brown looks like he's going to be healthy and play. So both of those injuries and health news is going to swing the game. It's going to be a big deal. Do we want to move on to predictions yet, Josh? Or
Please,
what are you
please
thinking
take
for
us
the
there,
game?
Henry. No, take us there straight away.
Okay, well, for me, I do think it'll be a high-scoring game. I think the interesting thing will be if the Bucks get out to a lead. I think the Chiefs can catch anyone. If the Chiefs get out to a lead, I think it's much tougher for the Bucks. That Chiefs defense is used to playing ahead, and they still throw the ball when they're ahead as well. I think that'll be tough to come back on. I like the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs will win. I think it'll be a historic match. I think it will be close, but I do think the Chiefs will win by more than the spread. So maybe I'll say by a touchdown at the end of the day. But really, really looking forward to this game, and yeah, interested to see what you two think as well.
Connor, what do you think?
I mean, I'm a big just believer in this game of Tom Brady. Like I'm on that side of him. I've always kind of appreciated and massively respected his like level of success over the years. Like obviously there's a lot to it. There's a lot of controversy around him, but you like at the end of the day you can't argue that, because I'm sure there's controversy around many other players and they're not able to do what he's done. So yeah, I mean I would want it there just purely for his like almost like legacy story coming out of it as well. Is just Tom Brady, and almost to exactly what you said, Henry, is that if Mahomes doesn't beat Brady, it's the exact opposite way around as well. If Brady doesn't beat Mahomes, it's like it's potentially going out of your career or starting to go out of your career in a way that's like, I'm now having to accept that I'm no longer the best like I was. But if he wins this game, it's I can still be the best and the guy who's going to be the future best. But I could still do it, and I think he's going to have that grit, that grind within him, the experience that he brings to that team, that he's clearly brought to that team, to be able to just tip them over the edge as well. So I really want to back the Bucks.
Yeah. Oh, cool. It's nice. It's nice to be split, and I could not agree more with both of you there. This is going to be a polished, professional performance from Tom Brady throughout. Look forward to some temper tantrums on the sidelines if things don't go the Bucks' way. I think that will definitely be a big factor. It's funny because for so long in my mind, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick were the league villains. I hated the guy, to be completely honest. But this season, more than any other, has made me be on the side of Tom Brady. I could not be more pleased for what he's accomplished, and I think it says a lot. But you're right, Connor. If he loses this Super Bowl, he's still proven that he's at the top level of his game. He would have then lost 2-0 on the season to Mahomes. I think if Brady loses this one, he is at risk of losing far more than Mahomes ever would be. But I actually think that works in Mahomes' favor. I'm on your side 100%, Henry. I don't think there's only going to be a field goal in it. I actually think probably 2 touchdowns lead for the Chiefs. I think it will be a very good game. I'm not saying that will knock the quality of what we see. It won't not be competitive as a result, but I just see the Chiefs being too much, and I can just picture it. But it all comes down to Eric Fisher's replacement and what that offensive line looks like against the Bucks pass rush. That's the only thing in my mind which swings it ever in the Bucks' favor. But yeah, it's going to be an amazing game. I cannot wait. But yeah, for me, Chiefs all the way.
Brilliant. Well, we definitely love to hear what our listeners think of that as well. So while you're commenting, you're in the slot buster, give us your Super Bowl prediction as well with a score, and we'll see who's right next week.
Josh and Henry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we should have gone with scores if we're asking the listeners to give us scores, but we won't be so bold. If you want to get a score, yeah, maybe there'll be a bonus prize in it. Who knows? But Connor, why don't you finish it like we always do? Take us back through the Inner Slot Busters. This week's one, number 11.
Absolutely. So just to make sure that for people who do want to guess and do want to get involved, we record our podcasts every single week at about 8:30 on a Wednesday. So if if you do have a comment, you've got up until then to be able to get your guesses in. If you want to listen to the podcast twice, if you want to keep going back and hearing it over and over and over again, we really appreciate the views. Just go for it. So yeah, do get your guesses in, and like we said, there is a chance to win a prize. So to take you out on our last or on this week's in the Slot Buster clue, it's wow, my child's vehicle just came. So I believe Henry thinks he's got it, but I'm not too confident. Put some doubt in your mind before we leave this week. And yeah, just make sure you comment. You got us on Twitter. We'll put that hashtag. We'll put our Twitter handle in the comment section below. So make sure you check us out there. And equally, if you have come to us from Twitter, then make sure you just put it on Twitter or on our YouTube comments, and make sure to like and subscribe.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Connor. Yeah, do remember to like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter. Check out YouTube, all the mini episodes we do. We'll break down some of this there and add some exclusive content as well. Thanks for joining us once again.